Good morning or afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar Wednesday. My name is Stephen Phelps, and I'm the Director of Marketing here at Acumen. And today we brought in our very own Nick Nabosny to go over year-end closing tips and procedures for Sage 300. This webinar will be in listen-only mode, and if you have any questions, then please use the chat option, and we will answer near the end of the presentation. With that said, I will now pass it on to Nick.
Thanks, Stephen, and welcome everyone to another Acumen Webinar Wednesday. And it is that time of year again, and I don't mean holiday shopping. It's time to get your Sage 300 environment ready for the next fiscal year. For those of you on a calendar year, of course, these same tips ring true for anyone on a non-calendar fiscal year, just obviously a different time and period. So today, just to quickly run through our agenda, I want to talk about a few of the best practices for Sage 300, a few of the things you have to do, a few of the things you should do, or at least we think you should consider, and a few of the things that you no longer have to do, like clearing history that was really important years and years ago when storage was really expensive, things that you no longer have to do in the world of Sage 300. We'll talk about a to-do list of things to do just after this call, and then also introduce something that's going to be new in 2023, Acumen Customer Success Plans, and tell you a little bit about that. And then you can work with your account managers to go into details if you're interested further. So let's jump right in here. So first and foremost, as I said, back in the olden days, it was really important to clear history, to keep things fast, to kind of save on space because storage was expensive, RAM was expensive. Well, that's really no longer true. And in fact, now we recommend that you do not do any of the history clearing in any of the modules unless there's really some good business reason to do so. And then if there is, contact us, because we have plans where we could help you set up a backup company for a history environment so you don't lose it completely, but you can clear it in your production environment. You don't have to go back and reset batch numbers, and gone are the days where you need to print and save reports. The ability to run things to screen, the ability to run things for multiple years now has gotten much, much better. And then also the power of the servers and PCs we're all working with today has gotten much faster to be able to find that information. So we strongly recommend not to do these types of things anymore in the system, unless, as you said, there's a really, really good need to do something, perhaps in a specific module. But I can really think of only a handful of times we've done that over the last 5 to 10 years for clients in a very specific situation. So now, as we get ready to create the new year, we want to talk through some of the steps and things to check before you do this. So we're talking about best practices, right? So this is something that we've seen happen, we've seen go wrong for clients. So I want to talk through them and kind of point out where they are and why they're important so you can check them to avoid any problems in your organization when you go ahead and do this. So the first is really to check the general ledger, and in the options, check and make sure that your current fiscal year is correct. And most importantly, down here at the bottom on the posting tab, you want to set it to keep as many number of years as your version of Sage 300 allows, or you would like to keep. And so in Sage 300, on the highest level, the highest version, you're able to keep up to 99 years of fiscal sets and transaction detail. And we have seen where that was maybe set to 1. And when someone goes ahead and runs Create New Year, it will dutifully go ahead and clear anything older than that point. So in GL Setup, Options, on the Posting tab, you can check what your current fiscal year is. So mine is 2022. And I could have this up to 99 years of fiscal sets and fiscal and transaction detail. But we have seen support cases where someone set this, or it got set back to down to 1 or 2 or 3 or something like that. And when you go to create the new year, it will dutifully just do what it's told and clear things that's beyond that. So very important to spot to check. Very quick to do, just one screen, but because this is a global setting, right? Anything in the setup section and options here, we would have to have the users out of general ledger, really out of the system, because everything does interact with general ledger before you'd be able to save this. So something first thing in the morning or last thing in the afternoon or evening, you may want to check that setting. Okay, you can look at it at any time, but if you need to make a change, you do have to have the users out when you click that save button. Next is GL accounts, because when we do the create new year process, the system is going to create a closing entry for us, right? It's going to move the income and expense from the income and expense accounts into retained earnings. And it only does that for accounts that are of type income statement. So another thing we have seen is everything worked perfectly except these 2 new accounts I created. Well, we go and investigate and find out that the account was set up as a balance sheet type account. So the system did not close that account because it doesn't do that for balance sheet accounts. So the way to check that, at least my favorite way to check that, is to go into the general ledger, into the GL accounts window here, and just open this up. And instead of flipping through them, right, we're actually talking about the field right here, account type. What I like to do is go into the Finder, hit F5 or launch the magnifying glass here, and make sure that I have account type, and I also have the segment code and the post-to segment ID columns available. And I'll show you why I like to do that. So first, there may be some on the call that don't know how to add those columns to a Finder. So let's just quickly review that. It's a good thing to review for anything you may want to add to your Finder. So up at the top of any Finder, there is a settings menu. And underneath the columns icon or section, you're able to select any piece of information that's stored about that particular item and include it over here. So we moved type over, and also the segment code and post to segment ID. Okay, so once you move them over, they're available here, and I can use them to search for things. Then you could do that same thing if you want to add a address line 4 to your vendors, because that's where you put some information that's really helpful for searching. Okay, so you use that anywhere, settings and columns in any Finder. Now, specifically looking for or quickly identifying some income statement accounts that may have been set incorrectly, what I like to do is I like to go to set criteria here, and I like to say my account number. So I select account number and I add it here. And I'll just double click in here and say is greater than, in my case, in my sample data, 3999, because everything before that in my world, in this sample database, is balance sheet accounts. So I'll just save that for a moment. So I'm only dealing with income statement accounts. And I could scroll through. My sample data is not very large, right? It's won't take me hours. But now that I'm only dealing with and only showing the income statement accounts, because I have filtered those using criteria, I could go here and say type equals balance sheet. And I could see, I do have a depreciation account here that is set up incorrectly. So in this case, it would not close for me. So it makes it very easy to go ahead and check that. Okay, so the other 2 fields that are important to check are only important if you are using GL segments and if you use segments to close to separate retained earnings accounts. So what I mean by that is you might have a different retained earnings account for each entity, division, region, territory, company, whatever you call those segments. And if you do, you want to make sure that the close to accounts are set properly. Now, this is a very easy one to just kind of page up or scroll through, because you'll see it here and you can quickly scroll through to see if any are set incorrectly or set up as a blank where they should be including a particular value. Okay, so that's not the only way to check this. You can scroll through, go one by one, but it's a nice way to quickly do that just before I push the button to create the new year process. This will allow me to check and make sure that my accounts are correct and that no balance sheet accounts are set up the wrong way. Of course, I'd want to check that as well, and also make sure that all of my income statement accounts are the correct type. If I want to get rid of that, I can go ahead and clear all and save that criteria, and now I'm back to the beginning and I have all of my accounts again. Okay, so just another setting. We've seen kind of everything work properly except, as I said, a few accounts. So retained earnings was off. We go investigate and we find out that Sage didn't close one of the accounts or two of the accounts because they were set up as the wrong type, or it was a balance sheet account set up as an income statement type, so it did close it, and that was a reason why there was a problem in the create new year process. Okay, next is really a best practice. It is not something that you have to do, but it is something that we strongly recommend that you do. And we find that we get calls, and this may not be as kind of familiar to everyone, especially new users to the system, but Sage 300 has fiscal periods, which I'm sure you're aware of, right? And you can lock and unlock them as you need to. But what you may not know, or some may not know on the call, is that there are also 2 additional periods at the end of every calendar. There's an ADJ for adjustments and a CLS for closing. Now, when you run the create new year process, the system is automatically going to move that income and expense to retained earnings in the closing period. And that's really the only time you should touch that period. It's the only time, unless you're adjusting the closing entry for some good reason, that's really the only time we see or suggest that you put anything into that period. However, the adjustment period is a really good place to put in adjusting journal entries, audit entries, anything like that that you may want to have in its own section, which would allow you to have comparative financial reports for period 12, right, year over year, because I can run it with the entire year, meaning including adjusting period, or just through period 12, or maybe just look at period 12, and then it would exclude those adjusting entries. So we've seen questions on that, and do take some support calls there where we say, okay, well, let's move those entries into the ADJ period and make sure that they're in their own financial bucket, so to speak, so that you can include them or exclude them on specific reports when you see fit. So again, just a best practice, not something that you have to do, but it can be really helpful for reporting down the road. Okay, at this point now, we've checked everything we need to do. We have checked our accounts. We've checked our global settings in the GL options screen. And really, we're ready to create a fiscal calendar in the system. Now, you see the pro tip here, right? Do it now. It can't be done too soon. It's really the only step that will allow you to create subledger transactions in the new year. And we truly mean that. We have clients that are making the 2023 or the next fiscal calendar, whatever that is for you guys, really early in the 12th period. If there's something that does have to go into the next month, like a recurring entry, a reversing entry, excuse me, or maybe I'm amortizing something over, so I'm importing journal entries. So definitely no wrong time to do that, especially because you can go in, right, and lock the period. So if I go into the fiscal calendar, and we open that up and say, let's go ahead and create a new period. I can use the plus here to create the next fiscal year. And I'll go ahead and maximize this. And we'll go ahead and add it at the bottom. So that's all there is to do. That allows me to post to the sub ledgers now. So in my database right this moment, because I have a fiscal year 2023 calendar, I'm able to post in AP and bank and in inventory, sales order entry, any of the modules except general ledger, because I haven't run the create new year yet. So what you might want to do is say, okay, well, let's go ahead and lock the future periods, right? So there's no mistakes, but I do want to have that period open so I can post things in January. Like I said, things like reversals that may be started in or entered in December and reversed in January in certain situations. Okay, very easy to do, very easy to kind of lock and unlock as long as you have security set up to do so. And then I think most of you know here, you can go in and do individual modules as well, so that if you were working on certain things, you may want to lock this entire column except perhaps GL, because you have some specific entries going into the system, but you don't want anybody doing payables or inventory or payroll or anything like that yet in the new fiscal year. Okay, so next is really the step where we need to make the new year, create the new year. And what this allows you to do is post in the new year in the general ledger. This will roll everything to income, to retain earnings from income and expense. This process will clear any of the GL history, GL transaction detail that is older than the number of fiscal sets you want to keep. Remember, that's why we check that setting in GL options first. That's where this is another last check where you can say, hey, it's going to clear everything from 1924 and before. Okay, I'm good with that. I haven't gone back to 1924 in a long time. So let's go ahead and run the create new year process. Okay, and really you see up here, make a backup. You see the stop sign warning, make a backup. So let's take a minute and stop there and go through what that process looks like. We strongly recommend that you do have a backup. And we also recommend, you can see in our pro tip here, that if you're an audited company or go through an audit, we do suggest that you wait until you've kind of finished most or all of the prior year before you go ahead and post this. And the reason that is auditors are doing testing, they're maybe reviewing the closing period, and as few kind of GL entries that are entered into that closing period, the better, the less they have to look for, the less expensive the audit will become. And they'll feel better about the process, about the system as a whole, and not be asking questions as to why there were so many correcting entries in the closing period of 2022 or the prior year, whatever year you're in. So let's talk about backup. There's a couple different ways you can do backups, of course, right? Your IT team, your technical team can be doing SQL backups, database level backups, and they absolutely should be doing that anyways. And we can't recommend that enough. We can't recommend that you not only make sure that they're doing backups, but you have them test a restore of those backups. So they might think that they're working, but if and when you need them, hopefully you never do. But if and when you do, if they're not working, and no one has ever tested that they can be restored. We've seen horror stories that there was no way to restore something, and people thought they were very safe and would only lose perhaps one day, and ended up going back many months to a backup that did work. So strongly recommend checking those and testing those, even more importantly. But there's also a tool here underneath administrative services. So your Sage Intacct, Sage 300 account manager or admin person would need to run this, but you can go in here and use database dump, which is a backup, right? It's an export of everything, and you can pick any individual company that you have in the system. You see the company ID at the top of every window. And you can pick a folder here. I'll go ahead and just put this out on my desktop. And we'll say this will be the 2022 year-end backup. I like to name it and keep it. So before create new year 2023, and I'll click the dump button. Now my sample data is very, very small. So this is going to take 15, 20 seconds to do. Depending on your data size, it might take some minutes, might take a few hours. We've seen 3, 4, 5 hours, depending on data size. So something you may want to schedule. We're certainly available. Our support team can help you kind of determine how long that will take, help you find this, help you get it set up and ready to go. You do want to do that when users out of the system, because you don't want them posting things as you're doing that backup. But once you have that backup for both the company and the system database, you're safe to run the create new year. Because if something happened, if you lost power in the middle of create new year, if you didn't check your GL accounts, if you did clear your history, you'd be able to restore that backup. And it takes a little bit longer to restore than it does to back up. So if it took 20 seconds to back up, it might take 30 seconds or so to restore. And the same is true for the 3 or 4 hour backups and the 4 to 5 hour loads. Okay, so they are kind of similar depending on the size of your database. But you could load that back in and you're right back to the place you were before you ran the create new year process. Once you have that backup, you're ready to actually run that create new year process. And so that's in the general ledger under GL periodic processing, create new year. And so we're okay with the warning because we did back up our data. It says we're going to create new records for 2023. That's what I want. I feel good about that. It's going to remove fiscal sets older than 1924 and all transaction history older than 1924. So I'm comfortable with that. I know my settings are good. I feel good about that. We'll go ahead and process. And it's going to go ahead and close that, create the entry for me. And my current year is now 2023. Okay, so really that's it. Those are the best practices, the steps to go through that process. So things I put here on my to-do list are go ahead and make your fiscal calendar for 2023. After this call, go ahead and go into common services and create that calendar, because you'll probably be ready for 2023 transactions pretty soon. And that first week in January, we get lots of calls saying, I can't post the AP or I can't post my inventory. And it's always that the fiscal calendar is missing. If you go ahead and lock the periods, there's really nothing, no reason not to do that. And then this link here, when you go ahead and look at this later, we certainly can send this out. You can ask your account manager for a copy of this, but this is a link to a blog post with the exact steps that I just went through. So you can go ahead and pull it up there on our website. You can also just go to our website and go to the blog and search for year end or create new year, and you'll pull up the same blog post about instructions on how to do that. And then lastly, I wanted to take a few minutes before we open it up for Q&A to talk about a new offering from Acumen. It's called Customer Success Plan. So starting in 2023, we really have a new way to engage with Acumen as people are doing everything more and more on subscription. We're offering a different support package, right? To avoid hourly billing. We're bundling in things like Acumen tools, imports, report packages, access to our learning center with recorded trainings on individual modules. We're offering new training for employees that have just joined the organization, or refresher training for employees that have been around and had never worked with maybe accounts payable because they were on the billing side before. So we've even been able to bundle in or wrap together your software subscriptions. You might have Sage 300, you might have fixed assets, you might have Acumen tools, you might have Orchid and Tyrox, and have a bunch of different payments to make. Well, we can put all of that together and include that as part of your customer success plan with a single easy payment to manage. And then offerings on a kind of an annual basis, you could bundle in things like efficiency studies where you work with a consultant to kind of review your organization, review specific areas of inefficiency, make plans to tweak things, make plans to enhance the system, your technology stack for the upcoming year. We've had clients that said, I'd love to bundle in upgrades so that I don't have to kind of be surprised when Microsoft offers new software that's causing problems in the environment and forcing me to upgrade. I'd like to stay current, so I want to get on a plan to do that. And then also a dedicated account manager that can help you through all of these different things, put together a customized customer success plan for your organization based on any of the needs that you have. So something new that we're kind of offering to clients to help with that regular communication, to help with that kind of ease of paying different areas, ease of kind of getting away from hourly billing. So just wanted to talk through it, but please feel free to reach out to your account manager if you have any questions about that, any questions about year end, and would like some help on any of those things. We're certainly here to help. And with that, Stephen, let's go ahead and open it up to questions. Please go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll certainly get them answered. Okay. Will we be able to access the recorded video? Yes, definitely. This is one that we will put up on our YouTube channel along with all of the other Webinar Wednesdays that we've done. So you'll be able to review this anytime you want. And then question, turn off the intercompany before we close the books in Sage 300. So yes, that certainly can be something to do depending on how you're using intercompany. If you're using the Sage 300 module or the ORCID module, that is an external or a third-party application, Andy. Certainly we can, if you want to open a ticket on that with support, happy to help you kind of talk through that and see what your specific configuration looks like. But yes, that could be important depending on how those are configured. Okay, another question, how often should we run data integrity? So that's a really good question. And I'm going to give you an answer saying that depends, okay? So the reason I say that is it depends on the kind of the size of your data and really your volume of transactions. And so if your database is kind of on the small side, you may want to do that once a month. If it takes a few minutes, you may set it up to leave off the fixes. I mean, there's a checkbox that says fix minor entries. We recommend to leave that off and maybe set it to run and walk out the door and you'll have that report, okay? Some clients have huge databases where we say, okay, let's maybe do GL every 4th month and AP and AR every other month because there's more moving parts there that could go wrong, and inventory every month because we want to really keep an eye on that. So again, that's something, Donna, I think that we would be happy to look at with you, set up a call to discuss and make a schedule that works for you. There are add-on applications out there. Not making this a sales call by any stretch of the means, but if you do have data integrity that does take a long time, there are Acumen tools, there are modules out there where you can schedule that. You can add them on and have it run on a scheduled basis and kind of just set it and forget it and let it go ahead and manage that process for you.
Perfect. Thanks, Nick. So it looks like those are the only questions that came in. Oh, we have one more, it looks like, last second.
If we post year-end entries now in period 12 and they reverse in January 23, can we post the entries now, get a message that 23 is not open yet, then post them after 2023 when we are mostly closed for 22? So absolutely, the answer is yes. If you do not create the new year yet, okay, so if I post today a journal entry in December 2022 and I have not run the create new year process, if it's a reversing entry, it's going to post in 2022 and create an error message for the reversal. So that allows me to kind kind of then post that when I want to, but you do end up with error batches, right? And that would be true for anything posting to the GL in 2023 until the Create New Year process has been booked. A lot of people are perfectly okay with that because it does kind of hold them as error messages. We have seen some clients where the auditors got kind of nervous about error messages and didn't want to see that. So we recommended a different approach, create the fiscal calendar sooner in that case, if you're ready to post some of those things. So sorry, not create the fiscal calendar, create the fiscal year, because posting in GL is based on Create New Year. Posting in the subledger modules is based on the fiscal calendar.
Perfect. And just with time, so we'll go ahead and wrap up. If you guys do have a question, or if there's a question that wasn't answered, please reach out to your account manager or email us at am@acumenfl.com. We'll be sure to answer questions without the next few weeks. We'll also be working on the next round of Webinar Wednesdays starting in January. So please be on the lookout for new topics and tools that can help your CH300. With that, we want to say thank you again for joining us today, and we hope you all have a happy holiday.